Guns N' Roses has burned through more drummers than most bands have albums, and that revolving door behind the kit tells you more about Axl Rose than any official biography ever could. The drum throne has become one of the most unstable seats in rock history. On the surface, it looks like bad luck, addiction, and the usual rock and roll chaos. Look a little closer, and a much more uncomfortable truth starts to appear. The original, Steven Adler's Rise and Fall. Steven Adler wasn't just the original Guns N' Roses drummer, he might have been the ideal one. His loose, swinging style gave Appetite for Destruction its dangerous, careening energy. When you listen to Welcome to the Jungle or Paradise City, you hear a drummer who always sounds like he might fly off the rails at any second, but somehow never does. That sense of controlled chaos was the band's secret weapon, the thing that made them feel genuinely unpredictable compared to the polished hard rock of the late 80s. Behind the scenes, though, Adler's heroin addiction was spiraling. During the Use Your Illusion sessions, it reportedly took him dozens of attempts just to get through Civil War. In 1990, he was fired. The simple version of the story is that drugs destroyed his career.
That was my life. That was my band. Me and Slash, we grew up together. We put that band together. We did what we did. Everybody was doing drugs. There was no one certain person. And then they threw me out. And then I did everything I could to try and kill myself. They just put that part in. That was what I said. And they don't put that crap in.
Well,
I hate that shit.
My next question.
And they put all this Matt Sorum and all these groovy people that have no idea. Half those people never even hung out with us.
More complicated version is that Adler was the canary in the coal mine, and nobody else in the band paid attention to the warning. Here was an environment so unforgiving that even a founding member could be pushed out when he became inconvenient, his role reduced and his contributions downplayed in the band's story. The message was clear. When things go wrong in Guns N' Roses, you don't get second chances. You get shown the door. "The band just deserted me, and that was really crushing," Adler said in a 2019 interview. "One day you're on top of the world, and the next day you're a nobody." The firing sent him into a spiral that nearly killed him multiple times. "My heart was so broken," he later admitted. "I just wanted to die." Years later, Adler still wonders what could have been. He said that Use Your Illusion would have been bigger and better if he'd played on it, and that fans want swing, feel, and groove more than machine-like precision. Whether you agree or not, that frustration exposes something important. The drummer who helped define the band's original sound was left on the outside, watching his old band become something he barely recognized. Matt Sorum, the professional who got too close. Matt Sorum arrived from the Cult with serious credentials and a much more polished approach. He turned Guns N' Roses into a true arena rock machine. On the Use Your Illusion albums, his precise, hard-hitting style, especially his double bass work, gave songs like You Could Be Mine a muscular, almost metal intensity that Adler's looser feel simply couldn't deliver.
And on the drums, Mr. Matt Sorum.
Sorum knew he wasn't joining a choir group. "I'm on a pirate ship with these other pirates," he later recalled thinking. "We were a gang, and you had to act accordingly." What he didn't fully anticipate was that this gang had one undisputed captain, and true collaboration was only possible within the limits of that captain's control. In Axl's mind, he wanted everything to be bigger than life, Sorum said in a Rolling Stone interview. Rose wanted the band to act like the biggest band on the planet at all times. Stadium tours, over-the-top backstage parties with ice sculptures, a level of excess that felt cinematic. And every bit of that spectacle came out of the band's pocket. The bigger the show got, the more Axl's need for control grew with it. By 1997, Sorum had seen enough fractures. When Slash left and Axl quietly brought in guitarist Paul Tobias without telling the others, Sorum pushed back. He told Rose directly, "Without Slash, there is no Guns N' Roses." Axl asked him if he was quitting. When Sorum said no, Axl fired him anyway. Adler was the warning, Sorum was the proof.
With Guns N' Roses, really?
Everybody keeps asking that. I just left, basically. That was it. So I left Axl to do whatever. And he's still doing it. The rest of us quit. So that's that. You have to ask him about what the future of the Guns N' Roses.
In this band, loyalty and professionalism don't protect you if you challenge the hierarchy. The Chinese Democracy Carousel. What came next wasn't really a lineup, it was a graveyard. The Chinese Democracy era chewed through drummers like studio gear. Josh Freese, one of the most in-demand rock drummers alive, joined and eventually walked away.
I get the job. I'm now in this recording studio 5 nights a week, Guns N' Roses, and all these, there's guitar techs, there's drum techs, there's engineers, there's Pro Tools guys, there's all these extra people and employees.
Bryan "Brain" Mantia, known for his adventurous work with Primus, spent years in a studio maze that seemed to have no exit. The album took 15 years to complete. Brain has described recording drum parts over and over, only to have them scrapped, re-recorded, and reshaped as Rose kept refining his vision. Performances were chopped up, quantized, and rebuilt on a computer until almost any trace of human feel was gone. At some point, it stopped being a band making a record and became a frontman chasing an ideal no human drummer could dismiss.
I was kind of sad to leave because most people take it personally if you quit their band or if you leave the situation. I didn't want to sit around anymore, and that's kind of what it was looking like was going to happen.
Understanding the man behind the chaos. Writing Rose off as simply difficult misses a key part of the story. The man who demands total control on stage and in the studio is also someone who's been open about serious trauma offstage. Rose has spoken publicly about growing up in an abusive household, physical violence, emotional manipulation, and a strict religious upbringing that taught him the world was full of threats. By his own account, it left deep, lingering damage. "My growth was stopped at 2 years old," he told Rolling Stone in 1992. And when they talk about Axl Rose being a screaming 2-year-old, they're right. There's a screaming 2-year-old who's real pissed off and hides and won't show himself that often, even to me. He's talked about years of therapy, about how his volatile behavior is tied to what he experienced as a kid. "I've had such hatred for my father, for women, for myself," he admitted. "It's just made me crazy." None of this erases the wrecked relationships, the fired bandmates, or the musicians left behind along the way. But it does illuminate something. For someone whose childhood was defined by chaos and powerlessness, control isn't just a management style, it's a survival mechanism. The tragedy is that the same instinct that helps Rose feel safe has also systematically sabotaged every version of his band. Frank Ferrer, the survivor who didn't survive. For almost 2 decades, Frank Ferrer seemed to have cracked the code. He joined in 2006, outlasted every drummer before him, and became the longest-serving drummer in Guns N' Roses history. His survival strategy was simple: be solid, be professional, don't overplay, don't try to be Adler or Sorum, and above all, don't rock the boat.
So there's 3 eras in Guns, right? So there's the Appetite with Steven, there's the Illusions with Matt, and then there's the Brain, Josh Freese, Chinese Democracy. And all three eras are really unique. It's really unique.
When the 2016 reunion came together, Sorum, who was literally on tour with Slash and Duff when the news broke, wasn't invited back. According to Sorum, Duff told him, "Axl wants to use his drummer." Sorum asked him to push for his return. Duff's answer was blunt. "Oh man, I already signed the deal." Ferrer showed up, played the parts correctly, honored the songs, and stayed mostly out of the narrative. It worked. He was steady. He was dependable. The shows happened. The tours continued. The machine rolled on. Then, in March 2025, after 19 years, Ferrer was out. The band called it an amicable exit. Ferrer's response suggested otherwise. "I will have immense gratitude and love always for Axl and the band," he wrote on Instagram, while at the same time, disappointment that this chapter came to an end. 19 years. no drama, no public conflicts, and still, Ferrer ended up exactly where Adler, Sorum, and all the others did, on the outside looking in. If doing everything right for nearly 2 decades doesn't guarantee your seat, then the seat was never really yours to begin with. Isaac Carpenter, welcome to the jungle. Less than 24 hours after announcing Ferrer's departure, Guns N' Roses named his replacement, Isaac Carpenter.
I'll think of his name in a minute. Let's see. Oh, yeah. No, that's not it. No. On the drums, Mr. Isaac Carpenter.
The 45-year-old Washington native comes with a resume tailor-made for the job. On paper, Carpenter checks every box. He's versatile, he's experienced, he knows how to serve a song without stepping on toes. Slash called him killer and said he stood out from the very first audition. Then came Buenos Aires. In October 2025, just 7 months into his tenure, Carpenter found himself at the center of a viral moment. During the opening song, Welcome to the Jungle, naturally, Axl Rose threw his microphone at the drum kit, kicked the bass drum, ripped off his jacket, and stormed off stage. And it looked like the new drummer's job might already be in jeopardy. The band later clarified that it was a monitor issue. Rose could only hear percussion in his in-ears and was frustrated with the tech crew, not with Carpenter. The situation had nothing to do with Isaac Carpenter's playing, who is top-notch and a great drummer, the official statement read. Slash backed him up. It got so blown out of proportion. Isaac's killer. Maybe so, but the fact that so many people's first instinct was to assume Carpenter was already on thin ice tells you everything about what that drum throne represents. It doesn't matter if the explanation is reasonable. When Axl Rose attacks a drum kit, the drummer is always the first suspect. Carpenter's tour continues. The question isn't whether he's good enough to play the gig. The question is how long before the same forces that pushed out everyone before him come knocking again. The impossible seat. In the end, Guns N' Roses doesn't struggle to keep drummers because of bad luck, a curse, or a shortage of talent. The problem is baked into the job description. The band, meaning Axl Rose, doesn't really seem to want a drummer in the traditional sense. He wants a human metronome who can execute his vision. No complaints, limited creative input, and just enough personality to make the show exciting without ever threatening his control. The catch is that great drummers almost always bring the very things that system can't tolerate. They have feel, they have opinions, they push back. They want to be artists, not employees. And that's a job description Guns N' Roses was never built to accept.
Smash that subscribe button right now. Don't just sit there. Join the crew, stay locked in, and let's keep the beat alive.